Give me the rundown of what you see as going on in the Middle East with this massive war with Israel and Hamas.
So, from I think some important context is that I'm Native American, and so colonization is something that I think about a lot in terms of like my own family history because I had family that died on the Trail of Tears. So it's like there's definitely a very I feel a relation to Palestinians in a way. So I think with that context, I view the conflict as um, a colonial aggressor and a junkyard dog that went too far. Like, I think that if it was using a junkyard dog, if you're in a junkyard and you see that dog and it's like, you see that it's like emaciated and it's beaten and it's like, you see why it's like that and you understand why it's like that, but you also understand that like when it bites, it's like, there is like a certain amount of retaliation that is warranted. However, I feel that there's a point that it went from defense to an active and intentional like just violation of human rights on a grand scale. And going back to like 1940s, whenever like the state of Israel was created by the UN, that was like already a place. Palestine was already existing there. And yes, you could argue that it's like they've been like taking that land back and forth since biblical times. But something about a government entity just created, like saying, hey, that's not yours anymore, by the way, that to me irks back to colonial America when we were saying, hey, that's not yours anymore. And so for me, that and then reading about like the Nukba, where Palestinians were like driven out of Palestine by Israeli forces, it's just like, I understand both sides. I feel like what Israel is doing is just so obviously wrong, and it's really breaking my heart to see people justify what's happening to like innocent people in Palestine because of what Hamas did. I think something that's important is that we need to create a distinction between Palestinians and Hamas. Something that I read recently is that like the Palestinian support for the actions that Hamas is taking is declining. Like they don't like what they don't want to be in this situation anymore, but they are like being forced to be kept in the situation. And I don't know.
With the United States involvement with Israel,
Okay.
we've been giving billions and 1000000000s of dollars. You as a taxpayer, do you think your money is going toward a good cause with this?
No, I feel it makes me feel almost sick to know that like my money is going towards somebody I consider genocidal. I feel like there's so many people like struggling domestically, even in Arkansas. Like just like Cabot was I think 40% below the poverty line when I moved there. Like it's like that money does not need to be going to a superpower trying to crush little guys. I think we should be spending that money on Americans trying to make American life better.
Why do you think the United States is so invested in Israel?
Resources. Israel's the last democracy in the Middle East. That's America's whole thing, democracy. That's just like, yeah. So, two superpowers, I feel like they have a vested interest in being in bed together,
Are you aware of AIPAC?
Not in super clear details.
Okay. Do you see the Israel lobby playing a large role in United States foreign policy toward
Yes.
Israel?
I believe so. I feel it is almost concerning to me, some of like the blatant propaganda I see. And did you see when the senators were like just like not autographing, but like signing shells that were going to be dropped on Gaza? That was insane to me.
Why do you, Would you call that corruption?
I would call that corruption. I think the fact that a foreign nation can lobby, or more accurately, just pump money into our government and make. I feel like. Sorry, let me clarify. It's like explicitly bribery to me almost. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. I mean,
But what are they doing for us is the question.
That's what I feel. I was like, what's Israel doing for us other than blowing up children? But also, America has been balls deep in the Middle East for so long that it wouldn't shock me if they were like looking for some sort of foothold.
Where do we go from here?
Doesn't it feel like the war just gets bigger and bigger and bigger?
Why do you think that's happening?
Because we just keep sending them money. And Israel, it's like they just do not like people that look different from them. They're going to keep trying to expand and expand and expand. They're bombing Jordan. It's not just Gaza anymore. It's not just Rafah.
Yeah, mainly Lebanon now.
Lebanon, sorry, yeah, Lebanon. That's what I was trying to remember. It's like it's not just. It's like they're not even trying to hide it anymore. It feels like to me.
So you think cutting off aid or money and weapons to Israel would have an impact on how they go about this war?
Optimistically, I would like to believe so. I think that if we cut them off now, it's probably too late for them to, like, in my mind, I think they're just going to keep going until they can't. And I feel like if we cut them off now, they'd probably still be able to keep going for a pretty good amount of time.
Say I was a pro-Israel, pro whatever they're doing militarily right now. Talk to me, explain your point of view, try to get through to me with at least one point that you think would resonate.
Imagine, are you familiar with the concept where the government can come and buy your house from you for a lot lower price and you can't really do anything about it?
Yeah, eminent domain, right?
Yeah, eminent domain. That's the word I was looking for. Imagine them doing that, but to you, literally your whole country. And then for years, they've been slaughtering you, driving you out, killing you, blowing you to bits. And then finally, you're like, I've had fucking enough. And you bite back. And then you know what happens? They blow you up again and convince the entire world you're the bad guys.
That's a very powerful perspective. I appreciate that. I'll just ask you one last question. So, where do you get your news from? And then what role does social media play in the information you consume?
Social media plays a pretty big role. I follow Ground News on Instagram, and I use their site pretty frequently, which is like a headline comparing website. It compares headlines from the left and the right and center sources and like what the articles look like. I follow NPR, but NPR is kind of leaning. I consider myself a leftist, but I like to consume like news in the middle so that I can like form my own opinions based off of facts. NPR is like leaning just like a little bit further and further left, and it's just like I don't feel like I'm getting the accurate reporting I was getting. So mainly Ground News, Reuters, and AP are what I'm getting my news from right now.
Gotcha.
And I'd say social media plays a pretty big role.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Of course.